Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Good Thursday evening to you. We got football starting here relatively soon. We're joined by my guy, Johnny Guitars. He's a highly decorated journalist, a super successful attorney in the Atlanta Buckhead area, has joined us each and every week for close to 20 years to talk ball. And he joins us because he looks at the NFL from a macro perspective. I look at it micro, just literally with Raiders, and then being a senior writer covering the NFL in other areas. And we like to talk Raiders and everything else. So we usually start Raiders and we end Raiders. But John, I want to start with last week. There is no shame when you're not a playoff team like the Raiders aren't. And I've said all along they're not. I think they're a 9-win team to go to Washington and lose, even without Jaden Daniels. That was an NFC championship team. That is a very good football team, very well coached with a very good backup. And they used a game plan that went back to his days at Oregon, where he was his most successful. It was just great coaching. And there's nothing wrong with losing. But when you dig deep, Geno Smith had a really good game. I mean, the guy threw for almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and was sacked 5 times. The running backs couldn't even get out of the backfield without getting hit. So when you looked at Ashton Genty's yardage, it was impressive when you went back and watched the film. The defense couldn't get a blow because the offense was so putrid. I mean, I think they only had 55 plays. My point is, the defense was not great. I think there were reasons you could say why. But the offensive line was embarrassing. And I like a lot of those. I like all the guys. Some of them I consider friends. And to me, this game, they're coming into Allegiant on Sunday. And I'll tell you exactly how I feel about this, John. They're coming into Allegiant on Sunday. It's going to be a very pro-Bear crowd. I think 50 to 60% Bears because they travel. The Raiders had a chance with a 90%, 95% crowd against the Chargers and blew it. They've got to earn their fan base. Don't sit there and lecture them for selling their tickets when you're already having embarrassing performances 3 games in on the year. You got to earn your fan base. They bought the tickets, and they're going to sell them to people like the Bears. They're going to sell them to people like the Cowboys. They're going to sell them to people like Kansas City because they're paying a lot for those tickets. There's personal seat licenses. They're going to get their money back if you're not going to give them a show. To me, it doesn't matter who the Raiders were playing. This is an early must-perform game. They cannot afford to get embarrassed. They cannot afford to have the offensive line not show up again. This is a game where I'm not saying it's a must-win, but if they do win it, which I think is possible, in fact, I think they're better than the Bears, but when I pick my predictions, I always pick one game that you don't expect them to lose that they lose, and this is the one I picked before the season. So a win here would not shock me. They have all the motivation in the world. They need to send a message to their fans. I have said, am I right or wrong? This is not them playing the Bears. This is them playing themselves. There's a lot of guys that should be embarrassed because of how their offensive line played, but they shouldn't be embarrassed. I'm about Geno. But this is where the entire team has to suck it up, buttercup, and they have to go make a statement. This is I don't know that it's important to call this a must-win because they're not a playoff team. It is a must-perform game for them. This is a monster game. That offensive line, please, John, where am I wrong?
Actually, I think you've hit it right on the head in that it's not so much a must win, it is a must perform, must compete, must play all 60 minutes, must not embarrass like the Raiders did last week. That would be a big problem. It starts there. They got to show up, compete, and not get embarrassed. You look at the Raiders from an outside perspective and you see 3 out of 14 on third down last week. You know, obviously, that's going to be a major emphasis. And it's easy to just say that's an emphasis. It's easy to say it's the money down. But then you backtrack it and you look at what's going on first down, second down. And I think you hit on the pretty obvious key is the offensive lineman has got to work as one unit. They are not necessarily playing the Commanders on the road, coached by Dan Quinn, but they had better really step up a good bit. I know there's some lineup issues and lineup concerns. This whole organization needs to make it look like they had a little bit of a mess. They cleaned it up. They're ready to take a step forward. And when you speak about the fans, I think what you described was really the modern reality, especially in Las Vegas. These PSLs and most of the tickets and season tickets, it's almost like they're a business first. So you cannot and should not try to even think of blaming your fans for selling a pair of tickets to a game or two that can cover the whole rest of the season. Everybody listening can understand that. And I think that the Raiders are going to have to work harder and do more to win their fan base over and to win the crowd that is in Allegiant for a number of reasons. It's obviously a travel mecca. So people are automatically coming to Las Vegas from outside. And I know when I was in town for that classic 3-0 game against the Vikings, there were people coming from Minnesota, just like there'll be people coming from Chicago or Bears fans that are transplanted this weekend. So there's no way in the world you should look at or point any kind of finger at the fans. My guess is Pete Carroll and company understand that and know that. And they know that if they start winning games, that thing turns into what they want it to turn into. Before they worry about winning too many games in this unique situation, I think you hit it on the head. The biggest thing they need to do is not get embarrassed and not look like a whole lot like they did last week, especially early in Washington.
Yeah, I think to me, I've not changed my. I mean, I had people telling me after they beat the Patriots, you better change your prediction. No, no. I love Mike Vrabel. I like that Patriots team. I said if they played that game in November, I think the Raiders would lose it. But this is a game that I predicted they would lose and said that they could win because I think they're better, but there's always that one game. But to me, John, a loss here is not the end of the world. There's other games on this schedule that look winnable that you didn't think so in May. But the point is they can't afford this early to go back-to-back embarrassments. And now let me ask you, Pete Carroll, and I want to make this very clear to you. He has forgotten more about football than I know, and I think I know a lot. Okay? I like him. I think he was the right hire. So I'm not wavering on any of that. But I like his, hey, I'm not wavering on my offensive line. I'm not making changes. I'm sticking to it. I'm golden with that. The guy's a future Hall of Famer. And if it works, he's going to look like even more of a legend. If he doesn't, it's really not going to tarnish his legacy. People are going to say, well, he went to the Raiders, which have been a failure for over 2 decades anyway, so no harm, no foul with him. I like his approach. If he's right, your thoughts there.
That's the key. Yeah, that's the key. He's getting to spend some of the capital, some of the benefit of the doubt he has with this specific issue because of what happened last week. He gets to spend some here, and it's all good if he's right. He's got to be right. If he's not, when we get to the bye, you're going to start hearing some contrarian opinions. Well, when you look at their schedule, like we talked about, it looks very simple to either split the season at the bye week or maybe the week before and have the Chiefs on the bookend, and this still being the first section. You see winnable games. You see what does look different from maybe the spring is the Colts, which some folks I'm sure out there were like, that's a win. We're going to get that one, no question. Well, now maybe not. Now maybe not, right? But if the Raiders can get 2 of these next 3, or if they can go on a little bit of a run, all of a sudden people are going to get pretty happy. And Pete Carroll, they're going to say, oh, I'm glad we stuck with him and he was right. I think the key is that he's got to be right. They've got to show some significant improvement and some function. You can't get your rookie running back anywhere if he's getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on a regular basis early in the game as well. So the Chicago Bears know that, and it's going to be interesting to see what they try to do to get the Raiders' offensive line in a position where they're again out of sorts, and what the Raiders may do differently if they do anything as far as game plan and scheme. Do they call anything different, especially early, or do they just go say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This time we're confident that we can actually get it executed. The schedule is interesting. Carroll has the benefit of the doubt, but that can be gone as soon as the bye week if this doesn't go well from here.
Yeah. Do you agree with my analysis, though? No matter what happens here, the only thing this can do to his legacy and improve it, it's not going to tarnish it.
No, it's not going to tarnish it because he had basically the clean break in Seattle. He's got the extensive record in Seattle. He's got the record at Southern Cal. No, because, and it's not that it's a bailout, but because he was coming to the Raiders there's a really good chance that he could have a bad record and still have proof that, hey, we got him on the right track. So, no, this is not going to harm Pete Carroll's legacy if this goes badly. If it goes unbelievably well, it could jump him up a massive notch. And if he can turn them into a repetitive playoff team, say make the playoffs 2 years in a row before stepping away, it can bolster his legacy a little bit. I don't see how this could be a takeaway. And even if this team won like 4 games, I don't think it's really going to hurt his overall legacy.
I agree. All right, I want to turn now to Shador. And for the interest of full disclosure, I really like him. I think he's a wonderful young man. I do think he's talented. I don't think he was a first round quarterback at all, but I think he's making a mistake here, John. And he's sounding like Robert Griffin III, and he hasn't even been on the field yet. I don't think this is a good look. Maybe you disagree. Give me your thought process, please.
No, I'm right there with you. And part of what we do here is go around the NFL from a Raider perspective. Obviously, plenty of Raider fans know Shador Sanders. I'm sure a lot of you out there wanted him to be on the Raiders ball club. There were some questions of maturity issues. He's settled in somewhat after the lead-foot situation in Cleveland. But now, for some reason, he decided to speak up and say, if you see the quarterback play in the league right now, I know I'm capable of doing better than that. This is not a good idea because there's absolutely no upside to it. If that is true, you're going to have to play your way out there and then go ahead and prove it. If it's not, there's just no upside to doing this. And yes, this has echoes of Robert Griffin III before he got hooked, benched, and replaced for good by Jay Gruden, which some of you are laughing right now because you know this came up like a year ago when for some reason he decided to go back into this, and Gruden laid it all out there for the folks on Twitter in a very honest way, and he in more detail than when they tried to explain why they moved on from Griffin. Bad idea. You don't want to be compared to Robert Griffin III on this measure. Shador Sanders may be right. It doesn't look like he's right, or it's very likely that the Browns would at least have him in a backup role and want to see what he can do. And I think all he's done here is set himself up for more difficulty. There will come a point in time where he will hopefully get time in an NFL game. There's a good chance it could be later this year. All he's done is put a target on himself. He's put more eyes on the way that he plays and scrutinizing every single play. Let's say some of them go wrong and it's not even his fault. There's no upside to doing this. This is an immature piece of media relations by Sanders. It was a mistake, and it is going to stick. When he plays, people will come back to this that he said earlier this week.
2 years ago, right on this podcast, my good friend Drew Stanton talked about Jackson Dart and thought he was absolutely at that point a first-round quarterback in the 25 draft. He has made it. A lot of people look good, including Drew. And now all of a sudden, there's a dart of hope in the land of the G-men. Russell Wilson. Is it over?
Sure looks like it, doesn't it? Yeah, we talked about Dart on this show as well because I'm one of the guys that liked Dart as really the NFL most ready quarterback because of Lane Kiffin, the coaching there, and also maybe giving him the biggest upside of this draft class. So now the Giants are in a situation where Wilson played bad enough again that they could hook him. So Wilson in Denver, Wilson in Pittsburgh, now Wilson in New York. He's got the hook, which makes you really look at some of the stuff that was done before the season. Fox had Aaron Andrews out there with a pregame special with him interview before game one. How does that look now? That page has got to be turned. Dable, Shane, they know their tails are on the line here. Their jobs are on the line. They're going to turn to Dart. I think this is a good idea for multiple reasons. It's early enough that if Dart doesn't work out, if Dart's not ready, you can spin back to Wilson or maybe even to Winston. And it's also the case that you want to find out as soon as you can how good this guy may be. It's partially how good is Jackson Dart now, but if the Giants think they're going to substitute in a rookie quarterback and make some kind of run to the playoffs, I don't think that's realistic. What is realistic is you get Dart in there for a meaningful number of starts. You find out what he can do now, where he needs to grow, and maybe you get an idea of how big his ceiling is. There are folks out there like Drew Stanton and others who look at quarterbacks pretty closely that think this guy is widely underrated in terms of how well he can do at the NFL level. I love the idea that we're going to get to find out about it this soon. And it's not that I love that the idea that Russell Wilson is on the downside, because it seems like he'll always be around. But now depending on how this goes, the Giants may have some questions to answer as far as why they brought Wilson into their franchise. At the same time, if Wilson is good with Dart and Winston is good with Dart, those are some guys that he can learn from. It's going to be interesting to watch this guy play. The Giants maybe really didn't have much of a choice. We're going to keep our eyes on Dart and see how good he looks and how soon.
We always like to do an off-field story of the week, so let's just get right to it. Holmes goes hard.
Brad Holmes is quite a story. He really is quite a story. A feature this week on him talking about his background, his 18 years in the Rams organization. 18 years. Talk about climbing up. Think of all the people who were in that building. He sticks with it, stays to it. And he recently given a speech where he basically told the people, choose your hard. However you slice it, whichever path you choose, it's going to be hard. It's a different way to look at it. It's a hell of a message for the game of football and for people that want to get into professional football. And he tells his scouts to this day, it's hard to be detailed and go the extra mile, dot every I, cross every T. It's also hard not to go the extra mile and be detailed and thorough. There is no shortcuts. And even if there is a shortcut, it may feel good in the short term. It almost always catches up with him. Almost always catches up with him in the long term. It's interesting to hear Brad Holmes talk about this. This is an interesting story of a guy at a relatively young age that got to be in the point of an NFL general manager. That's not even talking about the fact that he's a minority and is helping break ground in that area. It's just his pure record is really good. What the Lions have in Brad Holmes is not just a guy that's an innovator a bit. It's a guy that has spent so long in professional football. It seems like all the little bits and pieces over the years really combined into producing one of the better general managers right out of the gate. And his lesson there about choose your hard and about going the extra mile, that sounds a little like you know who. That sounds a little bit like Nick Saban. That sounds a little bit like executing the fundamentals with attention to detail, which is a phrase that I came up with after being around and underneath Saban, if you will, because he was the coach when I was in school. Brad Holmes is impressive, but why is he impressive? Is he going into a speech, patting graduates on the back or anything like that? No. He's saying, choose your hard. It's going to be hard. Go the extra mile to get it done. When you look at the leadership in the Lions organization now and the dedication that they have and the pretty consistent top-level performance from drafting, developing to coaching, it's not that hard to say it kind of starts at the top. They got a really good thing going with Brad Holmes and with Dan Campbell. A lot of us know so much about Campbell, but how about Holmes? And how about that message?
I agree. All right. When play calling goes tough, ouch. A lot of questionable play calling going around football right now.
There is a lot. And you mentioned Mike Vrabel earlier. The franchise he left at Tennessee is not doing too well, are they? Now, they're not doing well at all. Young coach Brian Callahan is now either been asked to stop calling plays or has voluntarily stopped calling plays. A name that certainly Raider fans will know, Nick Holtz, is now going to be popping in there. What's going on in Tennessee? The idea of hiring a head coach to call plays seems a better fit for college than it does for pro football because there's apparently so much more going on and it's just harder, right? But now what's going on? What do you look like as an organization in Tennessee when it's not even October 1st and you're already asking your coach not to call plays? Does that suggest to you that he may not have been ready to be a head coach? Yes, it does. What kind of learning curve and how fast can he get up that curve now as a head coach? Because Callahan said earlier this week that, well, let's just put it this way. What he said sounded more like he was trying to figure out how to be a head coach than he knew what to do as a head coach, and he knew that this was the best thing for the team and why it was, because it was taking him away from this or that or communicating upstairs the right way, whatever it is. There's big problems in Tennessee. This is a bad sign for Brian Callahan. It looks like he got in over his head. When this happens to people, how many times does it get rectified by having somebody else call plays? I don't remember it working too much. Play calling is a challenge enough. Callahan bit off more than he could chew. The Titans are in serious trouble now unless it turns out that Nick Holtz and company can really turn that ship around. And when this all goes down the way it's going to go in Tennessee, and when they probably have a new coach in there to open up their new stadium, we're going to look back at the Mike Vrabel decision with serious question. Where is your franchise going, Tennessee?
I'm already looking at it like that. I could not believe they let him go. All right. Push me and I will resist. The mounting defense of the tush push.
We are seeing an effort now. We are seeing people trying to throw this thing off the tush push. I see the same thing that you folks out there have seen the last couple times, especially the Eagles. They're trying to throw people off sides. They're trying to throw people to false start. They're using tactics that are unsportsmanlike under Rule 12, Section 3, about certain calls, using certain levels. You're seeing defenses trying to throw the Eagles off. One interesting thing is, and I've seen this as recently as the last couple of weeks, it looks to me like more false starts are getting missed. It looks to me, especially with the tackle positions, they're moving before the ball is moving, and we're not seeing a lot of those called. And some of the coaches appear to be seeing that. And I know Andy Reid wanted to point out where he thought the Eagles had jumped a couple times running the tush push. We talked about this in the offseason, and this has me thinking about it. I am now thinking more, Hondo, that it's probably a good idea that a maximum of 2 hands on any player to push, whether he's got the ball or not. If not, something like a spot foul, loss of down, 15 yards. That will keep the extra hands or some kind of a train going where a tailback is pushing a fullback, is pushing a quarterback. We've got to have some kind of limitation to it. In the meantime, it's funny to watch some of these teams try to figure out, how do we stop this? And I keep coming back to one thing that still doesn't make sense to me at the NFL and the college level. Why aren't more people just running this maybe on a first or a second down for a big chunk of yards when maybe they can get it off quick and see somebody in a lineup or a formation that they feel like they can just power right through?
John, it's interesting development. We're starting to see more flags flying for unnecessary roughness.
We talked about this on this show very recently. The NFL has got to figure out a way to keep the excitement of the game, but to eliminate unnecessary roughness, where a guy looks like he's trying to take somebody's head off, or there's an absolutely outstanding level of force when just the hands need to be pushed out of bounds. We saw some of this in recent weeks. This looks like a quiet point of emphasis for the NFL. We know some of the points of emphasis because we talked about them here that they put out before the season, specifically with some of the language being used. But make no mistake, what you're seeing out there is something that is needed in the NFL and something they're going to have a hard time figuring out. They've got to figure out a way to eliminate unnecessary roughness where they can. Some of us still think there should be some kind of a graduated penalty scale where you may even start with a 5-yard penalty, 10, then 15 ejection, or start with 10 and make an ejection the second time. But there probably should be some kind of a graduated penalty as we're adjusting and trying to get rid of more of this unnecessary roughness. And the players have got to figure it out. The more that this is called on a consistent basis, including throughout the fall, into the winter, and in the playoffs, the more consistent it's called, I think the quicker we're going to see the need for these unnecessary roughness flags to leave the sport, hopefully as soon as in a year or two. But you're not the only one out there if you're noticing a couple more. And I hope that the players will get the message and try to figure out a way to be a little even sharper and not instinctively try to really pound somebody, throw them down, take them down hard, pop them. Last week we saw a guy walking into the white getting popped. Some of that stuff, it can't be done, but at least the NFL, it's got it on the radar, and it looks like there are more unnecessary roughness flags flying. This is a challenge for the sport, challenge for the league. It's something we're going to watch on a continuing basis, but it looks like it's stepped up a notch so far in 25.
I agree with you. All right, John. So every week, by the way, we're growing very fast, getting a lot of new viewers. Every week you pick 4 games. We do our Fearsome foursome. The 4 most interesting games, in your opinion, we pick. Who won last week, John?
Hondo won again, folks. If you're scoring at home, I hope you're doing better than I am. We are now at a situation where you have won 2 weeks and we have tied 1. And I'm telling you, a lot of them have been very close. And as we know, the NFL, boy, it can flip-flop really quickly. We've got 4 decent ones this week, starting with a little bit of a surprise, maybe. Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, both undefeated, both looking good. To me, the way the ball is coming out of Baker Mayfield's arm right now, it looks as good as anybody throwing it. I think this one means a little bit more to Tampa. I like the Bucks in this one.
I'm going to go with Philly. Do you even know what Vegas has this at? What the odds are? I don't even know. I don't look. I'm just curious.
I can tell you that right now, Las Vegas sees this one and definitely gives the edge to the Eagles. The Buccaneers are getting 3.5. The hook being a big deal. 3.5 is a pretty large amount for an underdog at home. This one could be good. Right now, things are going well for Tampa. I think it means a little bit more to them. Minnesota at Pittsburgh is an interesting game for a lot of reasons. Some up and down for both of these teams starting out the year. Some of us started to really buy into the expectation that the Steelers might be able to make, if things went well, a serious push for the Super Bowl. Does that start this week? Do we see the Steelers starting to catch a little fire?
On the road, too. I mean, it's a foreign game.
Well, it is. And, I mean, there's no good answer for that.
Let me check. I think they're in Dublin.
Yeah, I know. It's at 9:30. It's at 9:30 Eastern. So, yeah, it's out of the country. It's in Ireland. Isn't it in Ireland? Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Dublin.
I don't know what to make of it, but I know that the Steelers need it more. It feels to me like the Steelers, their expectations have to be much higher than Minnesota. Minnesota's got a super young quarterback. I think the Steelers have to win this one.
Yeah, by the way, it is in Dublin, and I think the Steelers win this one. And I think they win it relatively easy. I'm a buyer on the Steelers. I'm a big buyer.
Well, it's about time that they start cooking it that way. For those that bought in, I think it may start this week. A lot of folks who were with us last week know the extensive discussion we had about the Ravens. And then they saw what we all saw at the end of that ball game. The fumble situation is out of control. The Ravens defense doesn't look like it did. I can't believe the Ravens looked so good not that long ago. And now it looks like we're seeing the window close in real time. They are on the road at Kansas City, and they are very down and very out. Can they pull a massive rabbit out of a hat? Baltimore at Kansas City.
Yeah,
1-2
Baltimore wins. Huh?
They are 1-2, and the Chiefs are 1-2.
Yeah, I'm going to say this to you. I believe in Patrick. I believe in Andy. I just don't believe in all of that team. I'm sorry. I'm going with all right. Here's my dilemma. And you may remember we were the first to say this, that I'm hearing John Harbaugh's in trouble. My analytical mind says Baltimore wins this. But my heart, based on some things that I've heard, I give the edge to the Chiefs. I'm going to go with the Chiefs here. Man, that's a hard one for me because I think Baltimore's going to win it. But I've got that feeling. I just think this could be the beginning of the end for John Harbaugh.
For those that don't remember, we're not here. Ando was extremely early in reporting Bill Belichick on the way out of New England, possibly. And we're talking about way early. Way, way early. I told you last week I wasn't going to take the Ravens again. That was it. I pulled out the fork. I stuck the fork in them, and I flinged the thing over my shoulder. Kansas City is going to take care of Baltimore at home. And beginning next week, other people will start thinking about and taking a look at the reality that John Harbaugh era in Baltimore may be ending. A terrific era. I don't think the Chiefs are happy where they are.
I want to make this clear. I'm not against John. And I think he will be the hottest coaching commodity next year and have a job immediately. This has nothing to do with John. It's just what I'm hearing from internal.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Mike Shanahan rule about being there 10 years comes to mind. The reality that it's very likely they've played their best with Jackson and Harbaugh, and they got so close to Super Bowls, maybe even more than one. If they take a big step back this year, and if they lay an egg in Kansas City, that will be an alarm. But even if they lose close, it's trending that way. And at some point, it's okay for everybody to say, hey, maybe we try something different. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily an indictment on Harbaugh. And like you said, even if he doesn't even take a year off, I hope he does, but even if he doesn't take a year off, he's going to be remarkably sought out because he's such a fantastic coach. This is going to be one to watch. They're both 1-2. They both need it. I think the Ravens are done. I'm going to take Kansas City. The last one is a bit of a surprise because I think a lot of people continue to overlook the Rams. And what a wild ending last week with the Eagles. I mean, insanity. Insanity. And then you've got these Colts coming in who have a remarkable start, to put it nicely, right? Their start has been outstanding. It's been a big surprise. I think it's fool's gold. I think that fool's gold starts to crumble this week. I think they are on a streak to lose that starts here. I like the Rams comfortably.
I agree. I think the Rams are a really good football team. I don't think Philly wants anything to do with them in the playoffs. I said it to you privately. I've said it publicly. I've said it on national TV. I said it on national TV last week that this is not, Tom Izzo used to always say to me, you can't predict NCAA tournaments because of matchups. And there are just some teams. I remember Michigan State was the #1 seed. I think President Obama picked them to win the national title. And they went into a game against Middle Tennessee State. And I remember, I won't reveal what Tom and I talked about privately, but I just remember that was not a matchup that Tom liked. And his guys played great defense. They were hitting balls 5 feet beyond the 3-point arc and just made every shot. It was not a good matchup. I don't think the Rams are a good matchup for Philly. I agree. I think they win this weekend. But if I'm Philly, I don't ever want to see the Rams again.
You know, when you look at the Rams, especially how close they've come to the last couple Super Bowls, you think that maybe they overachieved a little bit. I think that would be selling the combination of Les Snead and Sean McVay a little short. There is a little something special that McVay has. And yeah, part of that probably is a photographic memory, one that Todd Bowles, I understand, also shares. Part of that may be some of the mentoring he had through the Mike Shanahan tree. But it seems like the Rams, when they step on the field, they know they've got a little something extra. I'm not trying to pick on Indianapolis or Tennessee. I'm not trying to pick on half the league, but they know they don't have a Sean McVay on the sideline. And maybe that's what makes the Rams look like they play up so often. And maybe they get a little bit more out of what they have on their roster. I fear the Rams too. I think they're getting ready to go on a run. I think the Colts start going on a run down this week. Those are the featured four, the four most interesting of the week. And go ahead and get your, get your kilt out, get your Irish favorites out, ready to go for that one at 9:30 Eastern on Sunday.
All right, everybody. We'll see you again next week with John, and see you back here again tomorrow.